Hello again. I've been thinking about my school days again. Now, I'm not becoming maudlin and I'm not becoming romantic about it, but I was thinking about where I first learned the Lord's Prayer. I wasn't brought up in a Christian household, so we didn't have a Bible and I didn't learn it at home. But I did learn the Lord's Prayer at school. And I remember our hymn book because it was shiny and colourful, and printed inside the front cover was the Lord's Prayer, and printed inside the back cover was a selection of blessings, some of which I still remember. So when we had assembly, which started most days in my junior school, we trooped in and we sat down and we read and learned the Lord's Prayer. And I remembered it. Now, for the last, I don't know how many years, I've worshipped at churches where there hasn't been a liturgy, a set format for worship. So although the Lord's Prayer is familiar, and for a while it became a standard part of my own personal worship, it hasn't been part of my usual Sunday worship for a very long time. We often use it, but we don't routinely use it. And then the new wording came in some years ago, and it all became very difficult because some people learned the new wording and preferred the new wording, and some people preferred the old wording. And for myself, in my own tradition, use of the Lord's Prayer sort of dropped out of my day-to-day or weekly worship. But the Lord's Prayer is not something that I've forgotten. And it swam back into my mind this morning as I was reading a news article about an increase in the instance of domestic violence during the lockdown and before, actually, as well. That the over 50s are drinking too much, and this is leading to an increase in instances of attack and abuse within homes. And I was terribly sad about that. And particularly now that we're in lockdown, because we're surrounded by our own temptations. We spend far too much time, far more than we used to, on the internet. And maybe we're tempted to look at things that we shouldn't do and ordinarily wouldn't do. Maybe we are tempted to drink too much. Now that we can't go out, now it's more difficult to entertain ourselves, or we eat too much, or we abuse ourselves or our bodies in other ways. And I thought of the Lord's Prayer because of its line about temptation, lead us not into temptation. And that led me back to my Bible, and to the Bible's version, which is not quite the one that we use in church services. It's Jesus who introduces the Lord's Prayer. He says, "Whenever you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Don't make your prayer public. Truly I say to you, they've received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." When you're praying, do not heap up empty phrases, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. And that's such a comforting thought, not a tempting thought. Your Father knows what you need before you even ask Him. But Jesus says, do pray. And then He says, pray then in this way. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Holy be your name. Revered be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Even in lockdown, even during our privations. Give us this day our daily bread. Grant us what we need, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. Forgive us when we sin. Forgive us when we say and do and think the things that we know we shouldn't. And take a moment to ensure that you have truly forgiven those who've hurt and disappointed and betrayed you. And do not bring us to the time of trial, but rescue us from the evil one. As we sit in our lockdown, surrounded by our own temptations, even within our own heads are we tempted. Lead us not there, but deliver us, Lord. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. And our usual practice is to acknowledge once again that God is sovereign over all, for yours is the glory, the power. You are in all and over all. Make God sovereign over all of you today, over your temptations as well. Maybe the Lord's Prayer is familiar to you in its traditional form or its new words. Perhaps today is a day to place it back amongst your devotions, to remember to spend time with God, to remember to be thankful to God, and perhaps use the words that He has given us to save us from the evil within ourselves. Keep safe.